Welcome to the Pixi Dust Designs YouTube channel. My name is Donna and today we are making a card with the You're the One stamp and die set. As you can see on the back of the package, it shows some suggested ways to put together the dies for this set. But first we're going to make a background. I have a A2 piece of cardstock here and I'm using some Distress Oxides in the color of Rustic Wilderness, and I'm just ink blending a few blobs on this card. I'm going to do that with several colors. I'm going to now do some with some chipped sapphire, which is kind of a navy blue, and then I'm going to go to aged mahogany, just adding in where there's white spaces and then blending into the other colors. The next color I'm using is brushed corduroy to fill in the last part of the white spaces. Looks kind of blotchy, but then I'm going to come back with some pumice stone and I'm going to put that over the top of everything to just kind of soften the whole thing and get rid of some of that brightness from the colors that I previously put down. So this is just taking a little bit of the brightness away, kind of blending everything together. So I'm going to do this across the entire A2 panel. Once I have that completely covered, then I'm going to get a paper towel and my water bottle and I spray some water on my hand, and then I'm just going to start clapping and let that water drops just fly all over that panel. I have to add water a couple of times, actually about 3 times, in order to get it in all the spots. I let it set for just a few seconds and then put the paper towel over it to kind of soak up some of those water droplets. And what it does is it leaves some white, so it takes the color off where those water droplets were. So it kind of gives a neat effect on that background. Now moving to the die set, which is an awesome die set. You can see we have our sorting hat here, and I wondered what this little piece was here, and that's for the back of the sorting hat to put the eye and mouth colors. So that's just a tip for you on that. I'm going to use a gold Deco Gel pen to trace the lines from the die. It put the lines in here, but I'm using a brown glitter stock. And since it's a glitter stock and it's a dark color, you don't see the lines as well. So I'm taking this gold Deco Gel pen and just adding those lines back in on there. I cut out the books out of some shiny paper that I had, some kind of cream color paper. And then the covers I cut in um, green and burgundy and blue, and then I did 3 different of the side bindings that are included in the set. One I doesn't have a binding, but I took my gold Deco Gel pen and wrote in the potions. The candle I did in a shiny white cardstock, and then I had kind of a real pearly scrap of paper that I cut the wax part for the candle, so it looks a little bit different and looks shiny. And then I cut out the flames. There's 2 different little flame dies. One I cut in yellow for the full flame, and then the one that you can either do the inside piece or the outside piece I cut in red. I'm going to actually use the outside piece over the yellow for this candle. And I'm just putting that together here, putting it on top of the yellow, and then I'll add that into my candle. My goal for this card is to use all the fun pieces and parts here that you would see in this scenario and kind of have them floating all over the card. Now for these bottles, I cut those in acetate, and then I cut out the corks and the little rims that the corks go into. And I've already put the rims and the corks onto the acetate. I then cut the what's supposed to be inside, or the liquid. There's also a little oblong for the top of the liquid, and then on kind of the one bottle, there's a little tiny piece to put along the bottom edge of that bottle. And then once I had that assembled, I put that on top of my acetate. Now, I could put it under my acetate, but then you're going to see my glue if I don't have it all spread out evenly or use some type of sticker that makes it very even. So I decided just to put it on top of my acetate instead of underneath. You could do it either way. I think the acetate would look neat over it because it would give it that shiny look. But for this card, I didn't see that that was necessary because it's a real small part of the card. Once I had that all in place, I took my panel from before, once it was dry, I added some deckled edges, and I'm going to put that on some navy blue cardstock. Um, so I cut down that paddle a little bit, and then we'll layer it onto some navy blue cardstock. And this will serve as our background for our card. Next, we'll move into adding the sentiment, so we know where we're going to put that. The sentiment says, "I've sorted it out, and you're the one." I'm going to lay it on the card to see where I want to put it, and then off screen I'm going to go stamp that in black ink. So once I have that stamped, then I'm going to lay out the rest of the images on this card. Now my focal point is the sorting hat. I want it to be in the center, so I want to work around that. So I'm just going to lay that out. I highly recommend, if you're doing a card like this where you have several pieces, that you lay it out ahead of time before you start gluing anything down, because that's the only way you're going to be able to shift things around, and you'll see I shift things quite a bit in this instance. After the sorting hat, the books are the biggest images here, and making sure where to put those and have room for them and have them going at the right angle is important. So it takes a little bit of finagling around. And then you've got the bottles and the candle and how to fit those in with those books. So fiddling around with them a little bit before you start gluing anything down is important to get everything in the right position. And then it becomes very easy just to take some glue or foam dots or whatever you're going to use to adhere your items to your card. You can see I fiddle with these bottles because I don't like my bottles going in the same direction, especially if they're right across from each other. I like to have some different angles, especially if they're in line with each other. I like them to be going different directions rather than everything kind of slanting the same way. So once I'm happy, fairly happy with what I have laying down here, I still can fiddle a little bit with it. Then I'm going to start by putting down the books. I'm going to use just some foam squares for these, so they're popped up just a little bit. It's good to have a little bit of dimension in different layers here. So we're going to put down these books on some foam dots, starting with the one here on the bottom, making sure I don't cover up the sentiment and I don't get in the way of the sorting hat. Then I'll move to the one above that, and I'll probably adjust it as I go here, just to, you kind of see how it's going to fit now that you've got the bottles in place and everything like that. You can see a little better how things will lay out and how they'll look. Plus then I can keep the writing where you can actually read it without turning it upside down. I like that you can read the potions part a little easier there. So add the last book on with some foam squares, and then for the bottles and for the candles, I am going to use liquid glue for those. I think it's better to have those just kind of flat on the card, since we've got the books popped up a little bit. For the bottles, when I add the liquid glue, I'm only going to add liquid glue in the areas where there is cardstock on it. So I won't put any glue where you see the acetate coming through. That way the glue is hidden behind the cardstock that's on there. And I'll do that for both of those bottles. And then once I have the bottles in place, then I'm going to add some glue to the candle that is down in the bottom left corner. And all that's just simply adding a line of glue on that and putting that in the corner. Then we'll come to our sorting hat. And for the sorting hat, I want it to be the focal point. So I want it to have be even higher up than the books. So in this case, I decided I would find something I hadn't pulled out in a while, was my Pixi Dust Design wobblers. And these wobblers, if you haven't used those before, they're like little springs, and they have adhesive on both sides of it. So the item will kind of spring up and it can wobble uh, with it because it can move around very easily. So I'm going to take the adhesive off one side and put that on the back of the sorting hat. And then I'll take the adhesive off the other side And we'll put that hat back in place on the card in the center of the card. And the adhesive is a little harder to get off on this one. Just takes a little patience to get that adhesive off, or that backing off the adhesive. So I'm going to put this in the center of the card, making sure that I'm not covering up my sentiment. And then push down really good to make sure that it adheres. And you can see it springs up then, and then it just wobbles. You can make it wobble, which I think is really cute for this card, especially with all that sparkle from the glitter stock. So there you have it. There is my sorted card. You can see there's different layers here with the foam and the wobbler. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy this great new die set, and happy crafting.